welcome to the last segment of Citizens Forum. Our guest in this segment is Bryan Gilbert. We're going to be talking, he's with the Right Plan, and we're going to be talking about sewage treatment. Bryan is basically going to be making a presentation about the various options that are open to us. So, Bryan, thank you very much for doing it, and take it away.
Thank you very much for having us, Jack. I look forward to this opportunity to help public understand what are the options available for sewage treatment. And there's some interesting good news that I'm going to share. So I'm going to start off with just a little introductory slide so you can see my name and how to reach me. I'm what you call a citizen expert. It doesn't mean you want me to design this water treatment project, but I do understand an awful lot of various aspects of the project. You're welcome to reach out to me and give me some questions at therightplan@gmail.com. Start off with, why is sewage important? First off, water. There's drought conditions happening all around us right now, and we really should be thinking in terms of preserving the water and not letting it just go back out into the ocean polluted. There's also a risk. This is a gigantic infrastructure project, 20 times the size of the Johnson Street Bridge. We need to keep a close eye on it. Taxes. Boy, our taxes are going up. On this, it's making the area unaffordable, hard to live here. And is it really an environmental project? We're seeing that it still may pollute the ocean, and there's also the question of what it does to the land. So just as a starting point, let's look at where we've come from. What has sewage treatment been in the last 6 years? The Tertiary program is estimated to be $782 million in capital costs. But when you add in the operating costs, the amount to actually run it over 50 years, it adds up to over $2 billion. It's based on a secondary wastewater treatment, and I'll explain these details a bit more as we go through this presentation. It has a central design, which has tunnels and attenuation tanks. It produces biogas and biosolids. There's leftover harmful materials which will be put into the land. So we have a questionable environment benefit. But we have some good news. We can achieve higher environmental benefit at a third of the cost. And that we do it with something called tertiary, distributed, and gasification. 3 words that really just capture the real essence of the solution. A vendor came forward recently to the CRD and made a presentation. It was on June 9th. Their proposal was to treat sewage for the entire region, for just $250 million. That includes land costs, everything down to staff uniforms and training. It excludes public engagement costs. I'll explain what tertiary, distributed, and gasification means shortly. For now, note that this proposal provides reclaimed water, energy, which means revenue, and it destroys virtually all the pollutants. So how can it be so much cheaper? I'll explain in details as we go through, but it essentially comes down to it has no outfall, no tunnels, no pump station. It treats the water. It also uses gasification instead of anaerobic digestion. That cuts a cost of $340 million down to something like $75. What is the problem we're trying to solve? It starts with what is in sewage. This little representation just shows the sewage system, what goes down the pipes. Sewage is 99.5% water. There's feces and urine and soap. But it's much more than that. It contains many harmful materials, including thousands of compounds of concern, including pharmaceuticals, microplastics, beauty and cleaning products, microfibers from our laundry. There's leachate from the Heartland landfill. We do existing preliminary treatment. This is out Macaulay and Clover Point. 6 millimeter screening is happening there. That just separates the solids and puts them up into the Heartland landfill. The liquid is polluted, which is why we have deep ocean outfalls. The water is wasted. The heat in that water is wasted. And the system costs money to operate. So, what is tertiary distributed with gasification? That $250 million option. Let's take it one word at a time. We'll start off with comparing secondary versus tertiary. Wastewater treatment's all about separating liquids from solids. The preliminary treatment we have separates the solids that are larger than 6 millimeters. But secondary goes a lot further. Secondary uses a biological process to break down the solids to separate these from the water. Using new innovative technology, it can do more in a smaller space without odor, than traditional big tanks like you see at the Saanich treatment plant. Yet this process creates new harmful problem, superbugs. Multi-drug resistant organisms are a new health concern. Hospital wastewater is one source of these, but so are our homes. During secondary treatment, superbugs flourish because they are in a warm, nutrient-rich environment. So secondary treated water is still polluted, and it must be discharged in a deep ocean outfall. It wastes the water still, wastes energy, still pollutes the ocean, and it's just a little bit less than what we do now. So what is tertiary treatment? Tertiary treatment adds on to secondary microfiltration. It extracts out superbugs, viruses. It uses advanced oxidization and ultraviolet to further treat the water. It produces clean water. It can be made to be near drinking quality, and in some places in the world, it actually is drinking water. It's clean. But in our situation, we would use it for parks, irrigation, and at least we save the money on outfalls. Plus, we have the water close by for the time droughts come and we need it. Tertiary costs a bit more than secondary at the facility, but when you look at the whole picture, it's cheaper. Now let's look at central versus distributed. Secondary treatment requires a deep outfall, as well as a biosolids plant. Because you have an outfall, it's best to actually do it in a centralized facility. They've studied doing the distributed model, and they say it's more expensive. And that's true when you're using secondary because you need more outfalls. But when you look at tertiary, the case isn't so much the same anymore. Secondary has pipes to and pipe away costs. But when you do distributed, and the water is clean enough to be discharged into the local shore or inner harbor, or in some cases some creeks, but that has to be carefully considered, you build on top of the pipe that exists now. You have a modular design. You don't need tunnels. You don't need outfalls. You don't need pump station, attenuation. That saves hundreds of millions of dollars. And here's an image of what tertiary discharge looks like right now, dockside green. There's a discharge right there in the inner harbor. And if you get to live next door to the tertiary plant, your property values are actually higher because it's a beautiful water park. This is what we should have. We should have this shared and distributed across the region. Let's share the wealth, share the property value increases. This to me is an image I just grabbed off the internet. This is what I think it could look like. It's a beautiful park-like setting. This is what our wastewater should be producing for us, really increasing the livability and affordability of our homes. So now the last word, gasification. We're going to compare it against biosolids. A secondary plant with biosolids uses anaerobic digestion. And that's a process where the organic matter is broken into biogas, a fuel, and biosolids, the leftovers. Biogas is mainly methane and carbon dioxide. It can be cleaned and used as a fuel, but it's roughly 50-50 mixture. 50 solids left over, 50 gas. There's still pollutants that go into it, so there's still pollutants in the solid. And the current plan is actually to take those solids up island and spread them on the forest floor. In contrast, we have distributed tertiary with gasification. So what is gasification? I'll explain in a second, but let's look at the real economic thing. It's inexpensive. It's $75 million or less compared to $340 million for anaerobic digestion. It's proven since 2002. It's scalable, modular. It's easy to start small and prove it and grow as you need it. The outputs are energy, biochar, which is a super charcoal filter, and much more. So what is gasification? Well, I have a simple analogy just to explain it. It's vaporization, but I think of it as a pizza oven. Pizza ovens are about 200 degrees Celsius. They're pretty darn hot. Gasifiers are 700 degrees Celsius. But the idea is when you put your pizza in the oven, it cooks really quickly. And if you leave it there, what happens? It turns into ash. And what else? The rest is vapored. It's that vapor. That's the gasification. It just happens a lot faster in a gasification plant. Also, it's done without oxygen, so it prevents it from actually combusting. So there is no burning involved in gasification, and that's an important detail. So it cooks really fast, and it turns it into a gas. The syngas is an energy source. It's roughly 90-95% energy that we get from it, and 5% left over in biochar and ash. It completely destroys the harmful materials. Anything that's organic or carbon-based is destroyed. It leaves a few heavy metals, but we don't have very many of heavy metals in our supply here, so it's not really an issue. They're very small in footprint size. They're 10 by 10, very modular, easy to set up within a year. They're safe. They can be run in residential neighborhoods, although you may like to have them in a industrial place just for the sorting that's required. And there's not that many truck trips required. It's only like 7 or 8 truck trips for the whole region to handle this. So in summary, we have a choice. The choice is between the distributed tertiary with gasification, $250 million plus money plus water, versus secondary central with biosolids, $782 million, ocean outfalls, still polluted water, wasted, an annual sewage bill that grows. Which would you rather have? If you have any questions, I encourage you to reach out to me at therightplan@gmail.com. I'd be very happy to answer these questions or anything else. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jack.
Well, thank you, Bryan. So, I mean, this sounds good. How, can we trust that the information the vendor is presenting as a vendor can be trusted? Does this stuff work? Is it cheap?
Two things I can say to you there. One, I know this vendor personally, and I have 100% confidence. This person's been doing this type of work for decades. They're really they work at the World Bank level. They do international projects. The other thing is...
Wait a second, the World Bank is not exactly revered by a lot of people.
That's
we'll
fine.
let
but
that slide.
They work internationally, this person. He's very, very highly qualified, and I'm sorry I'm not giving him due credit. But it's much more important that we bring in other experts to really tear this apart. Let's examine this. I'm not saying it is that we got to buy this particular solution. I'd rather have other vendors come in personally and have some competition. And there are other vendors. And bring in other experts to really tear this apart. It's doable because I trust this fellow with his math. He's very precise.
Okay. But so let's just find the best plan. I think everybody
Exactly.
could agree with that.
Yeah.
How many different facilities are needed to do the city of Victoria?
The core. The proposal had roughly one per municipality.
Okay.
I don't think it was really tied to a number. The goal is to optimize the placement of these facilities based on the infrastructure to reduce cost.
Okay. Are you happy with the process that's going on right now in the city?
Yes, we've got a very public process. It's gaining direction. We're going to get there. We need the public to be asking for this type of information and questioning it as well.
Bryan, thank you very much. And really, thank you to the thousands of people in this city who over many, many years have worked very, very hard to, first of all, save us from the CRD's plan, which was going to be $1 billion environmentally useless disaster. And hopefully, we can find the best possible solution for the problem we got. Thank you for watching Citizens Forum this week.
Thank you.